Hi, welcome to the Rose at Home channel. I am Rose, I am at home, and I am so incredibly glad that you've decided to join me today. And a huge welcome to all of my new subscribers. We have now hit 250 subscribers, and I am so overwhelmed and grateful that you have all decided to join me here to talk about a group of books that lots of people are talking about them or have been talking about them, and I think it's totally well deserved. I think they're amazing, and I'm happy to jump on that hype train and talk about them with you as well. So I'm going to get right into it. The very first one is Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead. This is incredibly hyped and so worth it. It has won the Pulitzer Prize, it won the Women's Prize, and well deservedly because it is so well done. The genre here is literary fiction, so this is not an easy read as far as writing style and technique. It is so well crafted. It is also not an easy read as far as topic and themes. It is the story of a young man who is nicknamed Demon Copperhead. His real name is Damon. He has red hair, hence the nickname. It follows him literally from his birth up through his years. He is born to a single mom. His father is deceased before he's even born. He ends up in the foster care system in an incredibly impoverished section of the country in Appalachia. It includes commentary on things like the foster care system, how incredibly overworked and underpaid these social workers are, how some families basically use the kids as free labor and take them in as long as they need them to work, and then when they're done with whatever work needs to be done, they just send them back, or they use them for the financial gains and take the money that's given to them for the care of the child and use it for their own families. It touches on the opioid epidemic that started at the time of this in the 90s and the pill mills, and basically the people that were barely holding on but were getting by and were working and then were prescribed and told it was safe to take these pain medications, and they ended up with severe addictions. It's not easy, it's not light, it's not fun, but it's so well done. I cannot more strongly recommend this book, but make sure you're in the right headspace. If you need a light, easy breezy escape, this is not the book for you. But if you're ready for something that's really hard hitting, that is going to stick with you for a long time after you finish it, this is brilliant. And now for a change of pace, also incredibly well done. It is probably my favorite romance that I've ever read, and it is Emily Henry's Beach Read. This, again, it's in the romance genre. It's not super heavy on the romance. The main plot isn't the getting together of the couple. The main plot follows a young woman. At the beginning of the story, her father has passed away. I feel like I've talked about this recently, so apologies if this is repetitive. At the beginning of the book, her father has passed away, and she learns things about him and then about her parents' marriage that completely rock her world and turn everything upside down. She doesn't even know how she can do her job because she, in the book, is a romance writer, and she writes kind of rom-coms, and she can't write anymore. Her definition of love, what she thinks a healthy, happy relationship is, it's all out the window, and she's completely lost her footing. She moves temporarily to the beach house that her father, she didn't even know he had, but he did. She thinks maybe this change of pace is going to help her write, and it turns out that next door is her college kind of writing nemesis. It's a young man that she thought hated her, that she thought just always wanted to show her up. Anytime they reviewed her writing, he was always asking questions and pointing things out, and she really thought he was doing it as a way to kind of show her up or to make her feel bad. And so she was happy to get away from him and for college to end, and now he lives next door. He's got his own things going on. He's in a really dark place as well, also a professional writer, but he writes more dark, heavy literary fiction. At first there's kind of a little back and forth. Is it flirting? Is it bickering? We don't know, and it kind of goes from there. So yes, there's romance, and It's really well done romance, but we've also got a young woman who's dealing with grief, who's dealing with reimagining her view on the world and her view on important things like what is love, what is trust, all of her fundamental ideals. She's having to rebuild that puzzle. And it's awesome. I don't know what else to say. It is the book that made me want to try more romance. It is the book that keeps me going with trying new romance. If this is out there, then there's going to be others in this genre that are going to hit me just right, like this one did. I see this one recommended over and over and over again when people say, hey, I'm interested in trying a romance. I'm not the only one who recommends it. So it is well hyped. A lot of people talk about it, but it's worth it and it's well deserved, and absolutely 120% recommend this. These are not in any particular order. This is just the order that I pulled them off the shelves, but this is my most recent top of my faves list. And I read this last month, so I know I just talked about it, and it is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is as good as everybody's saying that it is. This is adult fantasy. It is about a young woman whose mother is forcing her to join the Dragon Riders. She was an intellectual. She'd always wanted to be a scribe. She always wanted to be the person who wrote the notes about what the Dragon Riders did. She didn't want to actually be the person in the action, but now she is forced to, even though yes, she is 20, because of her mother standing in their government, she doesn't have the ability to say no. At the beginning of the book, she really feels like her mother's just trying to kill her because dragon riders die at an enormous rate. And so she's going through, and at first she's just trying to survive to another day, and then stuff and things happen. It is such a grand adventure. It's got a whole lot of political machinations behind the scenes. It's got romantic interests. It's got romantic not interested. It's got everything. It is so good. When I finished it, the first thing I wanted to do was flip it back over, go back to page 1 and start again, because I didn't want to leave this world. And I know it's super hard to find. I think there's a third printing that is going out at this point. So if you get a chance to pick it up, or you can get on a wait list at your library, I would do it. I absolutely love it. And I cannot wait for the sequel, which is supposed to come out in November. I want back in this world. I want back in this world so bad. So totally worth every ounce of hype that it has gotten. I cannot recommend it more highly. For the longest time, my favorite book has been The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is, again, it is so brilliant. So here is my House in the Cerulean Sea. So look at this cover. I had no idea what this was about. I didn't even read the flap when I first picked it up. I walked into my independent bookstore, my local independent bookstore here in Tallahassee. It is called Midtown Reader. And when you first open the door, there's a set of shelves. And this was just sitting on the shelf face out. And I saw that cover and I just grabbed it. I was like, that is too cute. Even if I never read it, look how cute that is. I totally want this cover on my shelves. And so I kind of bought it as decor. And then about a month or two after, I kind of got a wild hair and I said, I should check that out, see what that's about. Maybe I'll like it. And I fell in love, and it is so good. This is also an adult, I would say, fantasy. If you like kind of an X-Men kind of thing, you would like this. Basically, the story is there is a man named Linus, and he does not think much of himself. He is kind of a rule follower. He doesn't think people generally like him. He doesn't have a lot of friends, or really any friends. He has a cat that he thinks his cat doesn't even like him. He's just kind of got a sad life. He goes to work, he goes home. He works for a government organization called Daikami that is in charge with watching over magical children. All of the magical children in the book are in orphanages. I don't know exactly, and I really want there to be a sequel, so I know, like, is this, they have to put them in orphanages? Is this, the parents don't want the magic children? I don't know why they're there, but there are orphanages around the country with magical children. And so his job is to go and do inspections of these orphanages, make sure the children are being treated well. He gets asked by upper management to go to an off-the-books orphanage that has dangerous magical children. And he gets there and they're the best kids in the world. I love the kids. I love Linus. I would totally be Linus's friend. I love Arthur. He is the person in charge of this home for these children. The island, the orphanage itself. These kids are great, and at the end of the day, they're just kids. There is a part of me, and I might have said this in a previous video, I don't know if my love for this book is that teacher side of me, because I get having kids where folks are like, oh, that kid is terrible. Oh, that kid does nothing for me. Oh, that kid's just, that kid's just the devil. And then you meet them and they're just a kid. That's kind of this book. And there's a strong element of that, of meeting people where they are and who they are, and recognizing kids to be kids. And they have these crazy dreams and they're just wonderful. And I have read this multiple times already because I do love this world. I do wish more than anything he would write a sequel. I know he's got other things that are in series, but I think they were planned that way. I don't think this was planned to ever have a sequel. I want more in this world. I want to understand more about why these kids are in orphanages. I want to understand more about the whole thing. I want more time with them. If you have not picked this up and read this, and you like adult fantasy, and you like that kind of almost superhero-y, they don't do kind of superhero things, but like that X-Men, that mutant, that other in form of fantasy, pick this up and give this a read. I think you'll fall just as much in love as I have. And another pretty strong genre switch. This book had been the book I was calling my favorite until The House in the Cerulean Sea, and this is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I loved this book. This happened with other books too, including House in the Cerulean Sea and then Fourth Wing, but I finished this book and tears are streaming down my face, and I literally couldn't put it down. I walked around my house not knowing quite what to do with myself, carrying the book around and kind of just hugging it and petting it. That's how much I felt for this book and for these characters. So this is, I would say, maybe contemporary fiction. I wouldn't call it historical fiction because Evelyn Hugo isn't an actual person, but it is so incredibly well written that it seems like she is. So this is the story of an elderly actress. She's been famous for decades and she's coming near the end of her life. She's been a recluse for a really long time, but she contacts a young magazine writer and asks her to come and offers to have her write her memoir and the full story of her life, and she can have all the royalties and all of the money for the book. But if she doesn't do it, no one's doing it. She's going to go to her grave without her story being out there. And so it's her telling her life story to this young reporter who doesn't know why she was picked. And it starts back in the 50s and goes straight through. It goes through all of her romantic entanglements, the people she married and the people that she didn't. And it's just, all the feels. If you like romance, there's lots of romance. Definitely there are romantic elements. It's just this kind of life story. It's this incredibly strong woman who's out there trying to make the life that she wants to live on her own terms. And I loved it so much. Again, this is another one I've read multiple times. I made the mistake of proposing this for book club, and we went ahead and did it. And at the time, there were folks in book, they're not there anymore, but at the time there were folks in book club who really enjoyed reading the book and then talking crap about it the whole time. You don't have to like if you're in a book club, you don't have to like every book. But they never liked any book, and they would come up with these weird reasons not to like it. And so I remember being in book club, and this one woman, she kept saying, but why did it have to be 7 husbands? It could have been 6 husbands. I was like, of all the things to complain about, in case you don't know, in storytelling, in crafting like that, 3s and 7s are kind of the magical numbers. They work really well in stories for flow. So I totally get why it's 7 husbands. She's doing technically good writing. That's why it's 7 husbands. But man, I was just like, I am never going to propose another book I like for book club again if this lady's going to be here. But anyway, sorry for the tangent. It's beautifully written. It is so well done. Taylor Jenkins Reid has this brilliant way of making stories feel like these are real people. This one, Daisy Jones and the Six, so many of her others, they feel like people. I went and Googled thinking I want to see her movies and she's not real. And the same with, by Daisy Jones I knew, but I was like, I want to hear this band's music. If you like this kind of thing, if you like those kind of life story saga type things, if you like reading about strong women, if you like reading about Hollywood and the Hollywood machine, you will love this. Give it a shot. I still see it on shelves at like Walmart and Target, even though it's been out for years and years and years. So give it a shot. I suspect you will love it as much as I do, unless you want to have a problem with the fact that she married 7 times. Okay, I'm just now realizing how fantasy heavy this list is. Sorry about that. I didn't even think about it. But the next things I want to talk about, 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. I still, especially 6 of Crows, because it's the first in the series, I see this recommended all of the time. I want to get into fantasy. What's a good place to jump in? This is YA fantasy, but it's not your typical fantasy. It is not the poor child grew up in a poor derelict part of whatever the kingdom is who gets pulled in. They're the chosen one and they have to save the world kind of thing. This is not that. This is a heist. It is a fantasy heist story. So think fantasy Ocean's 11 with a big seafaring component. And how is that not amazing? How has anyone not read this? It's so good. So it's basically this group gets put together to pull off what was even explained to them as an impossible heist task. And then you get to see all of the planning and all of the machinations, and then all of the hijinks ensue. It is so good. The only downside is it ends on such a cliffhanger. I would have been mad. I was kind of mad because I was like, wait, no, you can't stop there. But it literally picks right up in Crooked Kingdom. So you get to have them both. That is my very strong suggestion. If you're going to read it, get them both, because you're not going to want to stop at the end of the first one. You're going to want to jump straight into the second one, because otherwise you're going to be like, wait, what? That's how this ends. But it's so good. It had me from beginning to end. I was in it. I was part of this team, and I had the best time ever with this book. Speaking of seafaring, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. This is so good. So again, we've got fantasy, adult fantasy, pirates. So this is the story of a woman named Amina who has retired from the pirate life. She has had a child. She's living kind of off the grid, up in the mountains, just trying to keep her child safe and have a normal, quiet, boring kind of life. And this woman shows up and says, I got a job for you and I absolutely insist you have to do this. You have to find my child because my child has been kidnapped. Look at you and your child. Don't you have sympathy for me as a mother? You've got to help me out. She talks her into it. So Amina has to go back for one last pirating adventure with her ship and her crew, and hijinks absolutely ensue. You so feel like you're right there with her. It is so incredibly well done. I believe that there's going to be more to this story. I hope so, because I want to go do more seafaring with Amina and her crew. It's so much fun. And yep, it's long, but that is okay because it was such an amazingly great read and I cannot more strongly recommend it. I hope that if you haven't picked up any of these, I have convinced you to give it a shot. Yes, they're talked about a lot. Yes, a lot of people are recommending them, but for good reason. They're all just brilliant and some of the best adventures that I've gotten to go on within the pages of books. So I really hope that you get a hold of them and that you really, really enjoy them. So in the meantime, I hope that you have an absolutely amazing week and that you get to read some amazing books, maybe even some of these super hyped books because they're that good. Bye, y'all.